Let's get things started here, and we do it with the New Orleans Saints. It appears the Saints have their guy. It appears that the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints will, in fact, be Kellen Moore. And that's something we've speculated on for the last 5 to 6 days as the process has drawn on further. Adam Schefter went on the Pat McAfee show and said that, look, barring any sort of setback, Kellen Moore is going to be the guy. And that's the report that we knew was going to come. It was never going to be Kellen Moore is the next head coach of the Saints, because you can't do that while he's coaching a game. Kellen Moore's got a pretty big game to call plays in coming up here in 5 days. So you're not going to 6 days, so you're not going to hear that he is the head coach. That's not official until after the game is over. But we knew at some point somebody would have the news. That's where things are headed, and they are. And what did I tell you from the start with this process? I don't necessarily care to analyze every twist and turn and throw mud on the entire organization every time they talk to somebody who ends up not taking the job. I want the process to play out, and then at that point, we'll analyze whether or not the result is an acceptable one. And there are a lot of layers to this Kellen Moore hire. There are a lot of layers when it comes to Kellen Moore. There are a lot of layers when it comes to the current state of the Saints roster. There are a lot of layers when it comes to the Saints executive team. And so we'll get into all of it. Kellen Moore will take over this Saints organization as a 36-year-old. While that does make him the youngest head coach in the National Football League, it does not make him an outlier in any way. Kellen Moore is 36 years old. Ben Johnson's 38. He just took the Bears job. Zach Taylor's 41. He was younger when he took the Bengals job, obviously, having been there now for 5 years. D'Amico Ryans is 40. Liam Cohen is 39. Sean McVay is 39. Mike McDaniel is 41. Kevin O'Connell is 39. Mike McDonald is 37. He just got the job in Seattle. So it's a young man's game. Yes, Pete Carroll just got hired. Yes, you've got some guys in the league who are older than others. We understand that. But there's a large chunk of the league that has gone to head coaches that are closer to 35 than 55. And that's where the Saints stand with Kellen Moore. I believe that Kellen Moore is a really good offensive mind. And I say that because Kellen Moore has been hired by 3 different organizations to run their offense. He did it in Dallas, an organization that knew him exceptionally well from his time as a player. They immediately trusted him to be the quarterback coach, and then immediately after that trusted him to be the offensive coordinator. He was hired then by L.A. I always want to say San Diego. He was hired by L.A., ran their offense. Once there was a coaching change there, boom, Philly, one of the most respected and well-run organizations in the league. Oh, by the way, they'll be here this week. Said, we want you to be our guy. And he led the NFL in touchdowns in Dallas one season. He's got the Eagles playing really good football on offense. I believe Kellen Moore to be a very, very good offensive mind. And that's a good thing for New Orleans, obviously. He has never had experience being a head coach, and that's the one thing you just can't really know. You can't know if the guy's going to be able to come in, be organized, run an organization, hire coaches, retain the right staff, set the culture, all those things. He's never had an opportunity to do. Mike McCarthy's done it. You know he can do it. But you don't get that benefit when you hire Kellen Moore. So that's a big question mark. And we can debate the merits beyond that until the cows come home, and I'm sure we will as time goes on. But I think probably more importantly is the big picture of the franchise in its entirety. And you all know that the situation right now with the Saints is a bad one. That's not arguable. They're old. That's not arguable. They're way over the salary cap. That's not arguable. They haven't won a lot of football games in the last 3 years. That's not arguable. You can't argue. No one can argue the Saints are in a very good spot. That's impossible. Mickey Loomis can try to sit up there in a press conference and say they haven't done a lot of things wrong and that the injury bugs have been. He can try, but he's the only person that's making that case. Everyone else knows this situation is not good for a myriad of reasons. So you make this hire, and in my opinion, this is a low risk is the wrong word. It's not an urgent hire. And what I mean by that is, like, Jacksonville better get this right with Liam Cohen, or the Trevor Lawrence era is going to end, and you're not going to have much to stand on. The Bears have to get this right for Caleb Williams. Like, Ben Johnson has to be right for the Bears. The Saints aren't in that spot because they're not close to competing at the top of the sport. So if this doesn't work and Kellen Moore has got to be moved on from in 2 or 3 years, I don't think you're going to set the organization back in a big, big way. The most important thing right now to me is the salary cap and the draft. That's what has to be done correctly. And I think that there are probably a lot of people that may get there and go, you are hand-waving a head coaching hire in the NFL? Are you an idiot? And that's not an unreasonable thing to say, but I'm stating the case like the Saints aren't going to be that good this year. The Saints are not going to be great in 2 years, I don't think. They've got work to do on the roster before any head coach can come in there and really turn things around. So if Kellen Moore is the right guy and he does come in and lay a quality foundation and he does over the course of the next 15 months identify a quarterback, whether it's in free agency this year, via a trade this year, in the draft this year, in the draft next year, if he does identify a quarterback and you push off the dock with Kellen Moore and this new quarterback and things work, that's great. If you don't, and you do accrue a couple of early draft picks, and you do clear your books, and you do make a change at head coach after 2 or 3 years, well, that's the one you're probably going to have to get right, because at that point, the organization will be ready to take off. It's just not right now. There's a reason all these coaches looked at Mickey Loomis and the Saints organization and said, I'm going to go a different direction. Yeah, I want to go coach the Jets. Okay? Yeah, I'm going to sit this one out. That's what you hear from Aaron Glenn and Mike McCarthy. So the point is not like, Kellen Moore isn't going to work out, who cares? That's not the point. The point is, if Kellen Moore works out, great. If he doesn't, well, you've still got some other things you've got to get worked out in the process, and maybe he's a placeholder. That's just the reality of where the Saints are as an organization. And so, to me, that means this is not a high-leverage hire. This is not one they just have to nail. That's the case in Chicago. It feels similar to that in Jacksonville. The Raiders, not close to being good. The Cowboys, with Dak right there, that's a pretty important hire you just made. For the Saints, I don't feel that way. I can't give you a strong take on Kellen Moore as a head coach, other than to say I think he's a good offensive coach and he's never done the rest of it. And anybody who pretends to be able to predict the future in that instance is just blowing smoke. You don't know. What I do know is that the state of the Saints roster means this could be a bridge guy. It could be the right guy. We'll just have to see. And that's because of the situation the Saints have put themselves in, doing business the way they've done business for the last 15 years and more so for the last 4 years when you're trying to rekindle something that was smoldering. So, Kellen Moore, going to be the next head coach of the Saints. Youngest head coach in the league at 36, but very much in a class of peers with a lot of guys around the league who are between the ages of 36 and 41. That's almost half the league is around that age as far as head coaches go. So it's what we thought was going to be the case. Certainly nothing official until after the Super Bowl is played, but it gives Saints fans a little bit of a reason to lock in on this Super Bowl coming up, because the guy that's going to be handling your organization for the next few years is going to be the guy that's calling plays for Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and that whole crew up there in Philly. So, Kellen Moore, the next head coach of the New Orleans Saints.
Hey, it's Hunt. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.